Hello, this is Shambhavi. Welcome to Satsang. Satsang is an ancient spiritual practice from India. It means being in reality together. I give Satsang live every Wednesday and Sunday night in Portland, Maine. This Dharma talk was recorded during one of our Wednesday night gatherings. Please visit jayakula.org to learn more about the teachings. You can find video satsangs on Jayakula's YouTube channel, and my books are all available on Amazon.com. Much love to you, wherever and however you are. So tonight I thought I would talk a little bit about freedom. It's a word that's very important in this tradition. In the tradition of Trika Shaivism, there's a word for it, Swatantriya. Swatantriya means freedom of self-expression. It's said that Lord Shiva, or this reality, has total freedom of self-expression, Swatantriya. Now, what do we need? What are the requirements for experiencing that? My idea of freedom from our perspective of not totally enlightened beings is a kind of radical ease that allows you to respond and make choices in any particular moment without fear about what is going to happen and without being conditioned by what has happened in the past. So what we can hope for, I think, from my own experience as practitioners in human bodies, is that we can get to a point where we feel so easeful in life, so unobstructed by concern for small self-survival, that we can be aware in each moment and be responding without fear of the outcome of our actions, without projecting our karmic realm visions onto possible outcomes. When people say, I'm thinking of doing thus and such, and then they come up with, sort of an octopus of possible outcomes, and all the arms of the octopus are around their neck, basically. Holding on to their hands and feet, tying them down from actually doing anything that has any wisdom involved at all. But when we have this kind of radical ease that comes from an experience of how reality actually is, then we can be in that presence, sensing things, and we can take action and make decisions, make choices, and respond to our circumstance without referring to what has happened in the past and without projecting our karmic realm visions, aka our tensions and fears, onto these scenarios about what might happen in the future. When we have this kind of radical ease, we get a sense of rightness about things. So we are in flowing presence, and there's many things we could do, right? But when we make a choice, it's because we have a sense of rightness about it, or appropriateness, or goodness. We're really following that sense of basic goodness. And then when we're not doing that, we also can feel it. We can feel that, and we can kind of move forward in that way. Ma said that we all understand, or we all know in our hearts that we're free. And this is what causes us to yearn for freedom. But small self wants to perpetuate itself. And small self has other requirements. So some of the things that small self does, even as you, following your wisdom, are looking for freedom, some of the things that small self does are sending you in a direction of less freedom. Small self is just basically a dullard. No matter how high your IQ is, or how smart you are in some way or another, that collection of karmas is basically stupid. It's like a collection of one-note musical compositions, or a collection of one-trick ponies. It's like you're in a carnival, and there's a bunch of different rides, and they're all just doing one thing over and over and over again in every circumstance. Seriously, this isn't an analogy. You have consciousness and energy bound up in these patterns, and they repeat themselves. And unless you do something to interrupt them, they just keep going. So those things that repeat over and over again, they're like little personalities inside of you. And they have their own desire to perpetuate. Just like if you have candida. Well, everybody has candida. But if you have an overgrowth of candida in your gut or somewhere in your body, the candida are bacteria. And they have appetite. That's pretty much all they've got. And if you have an overgrowth of candida, you will have in your mind and in your desire, the desire to eat more sweets. You will think, what's wrong with me? I want to eat more sweets. I never used to be this way. All I want to do is eat sweets now. It's actually the candida that has colonized your mind in order to perpetuate itself. And then you'll see that when you get rid of that candida overgrowth, suddenly you'll be back to the old you that doesn't want those sweets anymore, or not an inordinate amount anyway. Did you know this?
No, that's disgusting.
But this is how our karmas are, right? This is why we say the karmas are not who you are. They are basically making up this entity you call you. And there's also freedom and wisdom in there too. But there's a lot of room taken up by these patterns. And they are the source of our unfreedom. These notes that just keep playing. If anyone knows that movie reference. Now, these patterns will do certain things in relationship to your heart, your heart's understanding that you actually are free. If you have a lot of carnival rides that say, I'm scared, all your carnival rides look like padded cells with lots of straps, so you couldn't possibly get, scared of them. Then you're going to think that you need a lot of rules. You're going to want a lot of rules in your life. You're going to think things like, no, I can't do that. No, that's impossible. No, this is always true. This is never true. You're going to be rather dogmatic and inflexible because these chugging little engines of karma inside of you are telling you to seek safety. And one of the major ways that we seek safety is in creating rules for ourselves. I'll give you an example, which I've given before. I used to be very afraid of flying. That's a fear thing. And so I still flew, but it was kind of hard. And then one day I flew somewhere, and I heard while I was away that my teacher was giving this teaching in New York the very day that I was coming home from some other trip. And the first thought I had in my mind was, no, I can't do that. You can't just land somewhere and then fly somewhere else. No, that's not done. Then about 24 hours later, I realized how idiotic that was, and that this was just a rule that I had made up to manage my fear, right? And of course, there were lots of people in the world who got on planes, got off planes, and then got on another plane. And that, and that if I wanted to, I could do that too, turns out. But this is how a lot of fear-based karmas cause us to live our life, with these internalized rules, or just completely made-up rules, about what we can do, what we can't do, what's going to work, what's not going to work, how it's going to turn out badly if we take too many risks, how we have to get all our ducks lined up. And, this kind of karma that interrupts our swatantra, our ability to be in the freshness of life and respond without fear, is precisely the kinds of karmas that cause us to feel, I can't do what I really want to do in my life until I build up a certain amount of material security. That's really a common expression of these kinds of repeating patterns. I have to have a certain income or a certain house or a certain amount of my savings account or whatever before, or my pension plan, before I can do what I really want to do. This is completely made up by small self. But it'll sound very reasonable, right? Your friends will, oh yes, yes. You're so sane, you're so grounded. Meanwhile, your whole life is passing you by, and you're not listening to your wisdom. You're just following along in this stupid way. I mean, everyone's telling you how smart you are, but you're actually being very stupid. Because all of those little, this is what's driving you. Cha-chong, 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 cha-chong. Right. I'm doing like this. This is what it looks like to me when I'm watching you guys do this stuff. This is how I'm experiencing it. You come to me with your really rational explanations, you obviously think you're very smart. And in an ordinary world way, some of you are. But to me, it just looks like you're going, boo, 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 boo.
500 times worse.
Mm-hmm. Like you're on some sort of treadmill that's making this very sound. Because what do I know? That wasn't a rhetorical question. I know that wisdom is always victorious. And that for wisdom there is always an open door. From doing however many years of practice I've been doing and whatever I came in with, I have utter confidence that wisdom is always victorious and there is always an open door when you follow your wisdom. And that there is never any reason not to. Never any reason not to. Oh, I can't do practice because of my kids. I can't go to teachings because I have debt. Whatever it is, even when it sounds absolutely reasonable. And people will say to me, you don't understand. I actually do. Turns out. The other thing that happens very commonly is that you want to get in a fight about feeling oppressed. You feel oppressed in some way, because you are. But you have too much pride, or you just haven't gotten to that insight yet, that you're just oppressed by these karmas. And you are actually afraid of your freedom. See, as I've said before, we are afraid of our clarity. We are afraid of our confidence. We are afraid of our wisdom. We are afraid of our freedom. But who is the we that is afraid of these things? It's that little dullard.
Is it really just your ego just wants to, my ego just wants to stay stupid?
Yeah. Get what it wants. Get its satisfactions. Because being free is scary. Having clarity is scary. Being free is being in free fall. Without any of these rules of crisp, alive kind of scary. I ran into somebody in Bard yesterday who took the recent How to Meditate teaching, a new person. A new person. He hasn't got the Nikes yet. And cult reference. And and he was talking about his experience learning this kind of meditation where you're not witnessing anything and, where you're just kind of being there, like going into what actually is. And he was trying to fumble for words to talk about how he experienced that. And finally he said, "It's really courageous." He actually got it, which was cool. One of the things that happens is that you feel oppressed, but you're afraid of your freedom. So you're kind of caught in a bind. What do? Blame somebody else. And that, if you have a teacher, it's usually the teacher who gets blamed, right? The teacher's making you do things. The teacher isn't. If it weren't for that horrible person, you would feel so much better, right? But it's all happening internally. It has nothing to do with anybody else, right? And in fact, you're even more pissed off if the teacher really isn't telling you what to do, but is trying to pry the door open and show you greater freedom, right? Because you're afraid of that too. Taking that responsibility for yourself, not having anybody to blame or fight against. And it isn't you, and it's not who you are, and it doesn't represent your heart's aspiration. It's simply the mechanism of karma that you have over-identified with. The next thing is that having discovered this, you start to bemoan your fixations, right? You get to the point where you kind of can see intermittently that all of these things are happening in you. It doesn't really have anything to do with anybody else. And those rules don't really exist. And you start to feel just how you are inside. And then you start to feel bad about yourself. Which is just another excuse not to exercise your freedom, not to courageously go forth into what actually is. Not to own your own desire, your own wisdom, your own knowledge that you actually are free. You guys who are studying with me are all in a tradition and with a teacher where no one is telling you that you have to be here. Right? That's terrifying for some people. Some of you absolutely want me to tell you, you have to be here, you have to do this, you have to do that. Right? Please, they're treating initiation like some sort of golden chain. Like now you're going to get to trot along behind me like a dog on a leash. No. If you let me, I will be fierce with you. But you still, you are choosing that. It's your freedom that you're exercising. And nothing can take that away from you. You can only deny it, temporarily, in your effort either to live by some fictitious rules or not take responsibility for your own desire, your own aspirations. Or hole up, last resort, hole up in feeling bad about yourself. Right? Having this narcissistic feeling that there's something wrong with you and constantly referring to it is basically you locking and relocking the doors of your cage. So this has come up a lot with students lately, all of these things that I'm talking about. But the fact is that you are totally free to live life however you like. To follow your wisdom and your heart's desire, wherever it takes you. There is nothing to wait for. There's no sane reason to put anything off. And there isn't anyone who's in your way. The nature of ignorance is that you don't exercise your freedom. No, again, none of us are totally enlightened. So none of us are totally free on that relative level. But on an absolute level, we're made of that freedom of self-expression. So we can understand that, and we can take more risks, and we can have more courage to follow our wisdom heart, to just do that. This Jayakula means victory family. The victory is that. Following that wisdom. That wisdom is always victorious. There is nothing to be afraid of when you're following your heart, that wisdom heart, that sense of rightness and goodness. There's nothing, absolutely nothing to fear. Not to say you won't feel fear, but there is in reality nothing to fear. Even if you died doing it, that would be a good death. If I die serving Ma, I'll be very happy. If I wasted, a bunch of years trying to save up a pension before I did that, and lived, a little longer because I didn't take so many risks or whatever, that would be wasted. There is really nothing in your way but your self-concept. And you're deploying misery to shut down your own freedom because you're scared. You think, oh, I am miserable. No, you are strategically miserable. My impression is you are strategically miserable so that you can shrink the space that you live in to something more comfortable for you. Strategically miserable. Jayakula is a nonprofit community offering opportunities to learn and practice in the direct realization traditions of Trika Shaivism and Dzogchen. We are based in Portland, Maine and Portland, Oregon. Visit jayakula.org to explore more of our offerings.